20.3 Pollution. Remember to go back to the objectives after you're done studying to make sure that you covered the lesson properly. What's pollution? When you add something to the environment that can cause harm, this is what we call pollution. Guys, please remember to memorize especially the keywords of every definition, because definitions are easy marks that we don't need to lose. Human activities can cause pollution to what? To water, to land, to air. How does this happen? So first, let's see what causes water pollution. Addition of chemicals. Can you think of any chemicals that we talked about earlier? Yes, we talked about insecticides, we talked about fertilizers, we talked about pesticides, which is the same as insecticides, and we talked about herbicides. So, sewage water is also a type of water pollution, but this is a type of water pollution that we cannot avoid. So, what's sewage? It's the waste of human feces and urine into water, which is a big problem that we need to manage. Yes, we cannot stop, but we can manage it. So we can manage it how? By creating a system of pipes that can carry this sewage water until it is purified and we can use it another time as if we are recycling sewage water. Okay, does the cleaned sewage water or does the sewage water have any benefits? Yes, of course, because all of these human wastes, it has a big concentration of nitrogen. And as we agreed before, nitrogen is very important for plants, for growth and for its protein synthesis. So nitrate ions in the soil can help the plant get better and better. So again, sewage contains big concentration of nitrogen, which is good source for nutrients for plants and microorganisms. What's the side effect of sewage? I think this is obvious. When sewage is added to the water, all of those nutrients that dissolve in water, if they were not put in the right place or in the right form of plants, it will cause the algae and the bacteria to grow dramatically. And of course, their growth is not very good for humans. Also, this can increase the fall of the concentration of water oxygen. Why? Because when they grow too much, they will accumulate on top of the water, which will prevent the passage of light to help all of the aquatic producers to make photosynthesis. Accordingly, the oxygen in water will start running out, and the rotting of those plants and animals will cause more and more running out of oxygen from the water. So now what was originally a pure pond will turn into a swamp that's full of bacteria and fungi and can be very dangerous to the surrounding ecosystem. What if we drank water that contains untreated sewage or unpurified sewage? This will cause vomiting, diarrhea, fever, and even death. So how do we solve this problem? First, before putting the sewage into the rivers or seas, we have to first treat it. And we can use the water of the treated sewage into watering plants to get use of the good nutrients in it in the right way. Instead of just throwing untreated sewage into rivers and seas, that might cause all of those side effects. Okay. There is another effect. We said that when we add chemicals like fertilizers into the water, this can cause problems too. Why? Because fertilizers, they are full of nutrients, just like sewage for the plant. So when we add them, this will cause the increase in the production or the reproduction of the bacteria and the fungi, which will cause them to grow on top of the water like this. What do we call this? What you see here, we call it eutrophication. What does that mean? It means that the algae and the water plants grew too much and they covered the surface of water. This is what we call eutrophication. So again, what's eutrophication? Which is a side effect on its own. It is a chain of events that is caused by the addition of extra plant nutrients to the water, resulting in the decrease of the concentration of dissolved oxygen available for organisms. that require aerobic respiration. So this is the definition. Let's break it down. First, when we add any extra nutrients, either put into the water by sewage water or by fertilizers, this will increase the flourishing of a specific population over the flourishing of the others. So what will happen? This will cause them to block the light and block the entrance of oxygen from any other sources into the water. So what will happen to the oxygen in the water? It will be used up by the decay of the extra plants and also the decay of some animals that do not have now enough source of oxygen. So again, the decay will use up another amount of oxygen. Now the oxygen concentration will decrease and decrease and decrease. So what will happen to the animals or the aquatic animals living? They are going to die because they need oxygen for their aerobic respiration. And without aerobic respiration, no energy, death. Okay, so this is eutrophication. Okay, pollution due to discarded plastics or non-biodegradable materials, which is plastic. If you take the plastic and you put it into the soil, what will happen to this soil? Since it is non-biodegradable, it does not decay. And the main benefit of decay is that it returns the nutrients back into the soil. So when we bury things that cannot decay, no nutrients will return back to the soil. So eventually this soil will turn into non-fertile soil, and accordingly it will not be good anymore for planting. So what will we use it in? Maybe we can use it in buildings, but the problem is that even to build on this soil, we need to make sure that those plastics are now broken down and this soil is stable. So this means that this terrestrial ecosystem is now damaged. Okay, what about plastics in water or non-biodegradable materials in aquatic ecosystems or in aquatic systems? First, sometimes plastics are eaten by animals as a mistake of a prey. This poor turtle is going to eat this plastic bag, imagining that it's the jellyfish, which is its prey. And when you eat plastic or when the animal eats plastic, this can cause huge damage to its digestive system. It's not digestible. It can block the digestive system because it does not break down. And also, even the very small particles of plastic, not a big one, can cause the animals to eat them, imagining that they are food. And of course, when they eat them, this will not give them any nutrition. And sometimes with more accumulation, even if they are very small pieces of plastic, can cause blocking to their digestive system too. And in both ways, this can cause the death of the aquatic animal. Plastic also may be broken down in many years. But will this help the environment? Actually, no, because when plastic gets broken down, it releases toxins that might affect the living organisms too. And finally, plastic nets and ropes that some fishermen use, when they get released or left into the seas or into the aquatic environment, they can tangle around or entangle around the necks of the organisms, and this will stop the organism from swimming to find food and to survive, and accordingly this organism will die from starvation, like our friend here. Air pollution. We remember that we talked about greenhouse gases before. What's a greenhouse gas? A greenhouse gas is a gas that, when present in a large amount in the atmosphere, it will block the escape of heat from the planet. And this will cause a dramatic increase in the temperature of the planet. We will discuss two greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide and methane gases. So carbon dioxide, as we agreed before, comes out due to the decay of living organisms, aerobic respiration, combustion, and everything that we mentioned in the carbon cycle. And methane gas, it comes out also from the decay of living organisms and also from the swamps that we discussed before, digestion of food in the alimentary canal. That's why we say that livestocking also increases the presence of methane gas in the air. Okay. Greenhouse effect. Surprisingly, actually, greenhouse effect is not totally bad. This is how we survive on this planet, and this is how Earth maintains a good temperature. So originally it was a natural phenomena, but what's the problem? The problem is with the dramatic increase in temperature, it started having bad side effects. So having a proper hot environment or a proper warm environment to provide living, this was the real purpose of the greenhouse effect. And without it, the Earth would be too cold to support life. But actually, with the increase of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, now Earth is getting too hot, and now this is affecting life in a negative way. So the problem is enhanced greenhouse effect, which increases heating effect caused by the increase in the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, which may trap more infrared radiation, which causes heat to increase dramatically and more than it's required to be. What are the sources of greenhouse gases? Combustion of fossil fuels, of course, releasing methane gas by bacteria that breaks down organic materials in mud and in the stomachs of animals, especially the ones that chew the cud. Also, the release of methane gas by decomposers, decaying rubbish in landfills. Remember when we discussed landfills in the beginning of this syllabus, and we said that methane should be collected by special pipes and it should be taken to be used as a biofuel. Deforestation also. Why? Because when we decrease the amount of photosynthetic populations, this will increase the carbon dioxide in the air. More extreme weather events can be caused by global warming. Like what? High temperature will lead to different patterns of wind. So sometimes wind now is unpredictable because of the changes of the weather, the dramatic sudden changes of the weather. Hurricanes and tropical cyclones. This is what you see here, and they can destroy full cities. They are very dangerous. Droughts, of course, because with the increase in temperature, this will increase the evaporation of water and it will cause droughts. Also, sea levels can rise because of the increase in the volume of water, which we call thermal expansion. So it's predicted that some countries will move inland more, which means that they will stay away from the water shores because of the expansion of the water that might destroy some of the cities that are near the water. How do we solve this problem? First, we need to reduce the emission of greenhouse gases, which means that we need to reduce the use of the fossil fuels and start using more sustainable materials or sustainable resources. And also, we need to increase vegetation and increase photosynthesis in order to replace this carbon dioxide with oxygen. Now, let's answer some questions. The map shows a river flowing into the sea. The river is polluted by untreated sewage. At which labeled point will the oxygen concentration of the water be the lowest? So, here you see the lowest amount of oxygen concentration will be in B because the untreated sewage water just entered here, and again the presence of untreated sewage will always decrease the concentration of oxygen. But here this is pure clean water, and here the water got mixed up with the clean water, so this will increase the oxygen, and when it goes to the sea, now the sea will not be affected by the decrease in oxygen. It will be affected, but not dramatically as here and here. The diagram shows some of the effects of human activity on a river. What could have caused these effects? So here you see fish are dying from the lack of oxygen, bacteria use up the dissolved oxygen, water weeds grow quickly. What could have caused this? Yes, overuse of fertilizers. So when fertilizers enter the water, the seaweeds will increase dramatically and they will start causing eutrophication. The diagram shows 4 places on a river where the water samples were taken. So here we go W, X, Y, and Z. These are the 4 areas where we took samples of water. Which graph shows oxygen concentration in the river? So, if you take a look at each graph, at point W, the oxygen was here, X, it was increasing, Y, increasing. If you look here at the diagram, untreated sewage water entered this water just before the point Y. So what do you expect to happen? We expect that oxygen concentration will start decreasing at Y. So of course, A is not the correct answer. Let's see here. The oxygen dropped at X. Do you see any reason to cause oxygen dropping at X? Of course not. What about C? Here you have oxygen dropping at Y. This can be the right answer. Let's look here. Oxygen increased at Y. This is definitely not the answer. So the correct answer is C. Please, this is another way to answer paper 1 questions. When you're confused, start eliminating. Read the question carefully, follow the instructions in the question, and make sure that you are looking at the diagrams and interpreting them in the right way. Plastic bags cause many problems in the environment. Plastic bags were banned in Bangladesh in 2002. Outline the effects of non-biodegradable plastics on the environment. Let's see. All of the effects of non-biodegradable plastics on the environment, either it is terrestrial or land or aquatic systems, should be mentioned. Outline means that I will mention them in bullet points. We only use paragraphs in the explain question. So you will just write any of the effects of non-biodegradable plastic on the environment. Okay, some countries have not banned plastic bags. There have been many studies to analyze possible alternatives to plastic bags. Table 5.1 shows the results of a study comparing the environmental impact of producing plastic bags and paper bags. Here you have, in figure 5.1, the comparison. Compare the environmental impact of making plastic bags to the environmental impact of making paper bags. You should use the data on table 5.1 in your answer. So when he's mentioning that you should use the data, this means that you have to extract your opinion from the table only, not just based on what you already know. So when you compare here, you will see that plastic bags cause more water-borne chemical waste than paper bags. Plastic bags make less airborne chemical waste than paper bags. This means that paper bags will cause more airborne waste. Production of paper bags cause trees destruction, while plastic bags doesn't. So in the opposite of what you may think, that this question is driving you to write the disadvantages of non-biodegradable plastics, this question is just making a fair comparison. So please make sure when he mentions that you should extract information from a specific table, follow the instructions of the question. Do not just depend on what you already know. Thank you, and I hope this video helps you study.